So today we're meeting up with my great friend Tim Sae Koo. The reason why I got Boo Boo with me is because Boo Boo was also with me when I met Tim. Both of us met at a retreat where we work with plant medicine, ayahuasca, back in April in Costa Rica. One of the funniest things was the fact that actually Boo Boo was with me and we're dancing the whole time. And now, the interesting part about Tim is a 29-year-old entrepreneur. He bootstrapped his company Tint to 36 employees, sold it, and is now the CMO of One Heart Journeys, and furthermore, he's an angel investor. He's one of the most incredible young minds that I've gotten to know in my life, and I can't wait to share his story with you guys. Tim, I am extremely thankful to be here with you. So, you're an amazing man that does need outstanding clothing. I love the way you just like sit there with your little sweatpants and your t-shirt on. What most people would never realize is the fact that you've built an incredibly successful startup. You bootstrapped to 36 full-time employees, and that company got acquired. That's public information. Yes. We cannot talk about how much it was sold for.
But yes, acquired last year,
right.
2018.
Right, and now you kind of are in the situation that most people would desire to be in, which is a very humbling and amazing experience for you for sure. But let's trace back. Who is behind Tim? What happened? What got you where you are right now?
Yeah, when I think about kind of tracing back and who I am today, I think of my younger self, let's call it at like 5 years old. And there's a couple scenes that come up that really describe who I am. One is in the car with my mom driving, her in the front seat, me in the back seat at nighttime. She posed a question just like, hey, who do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to focus on? And I remember at that time, there was a lot of challenges with my family. And so a lot of my mindset of who I wanted to be or what I wanted to do was really catered towards kind of making her happier and more enjoyable. She's a single mother of three kids, and I'm the youngest of three. So I answered to her, I would love to either be one of two things, the first Asian American president of the United States, which might not be possible now because we have a candidate now, but secondly, hotel manager. And hotel manager was kind of like off for her. She was wondering why. And for me, it was that I noticed she was the happiest when she took us on vacations and were in hotels to enjoy family time. So I think that really spoke to her, but she just kind of directed me to be like, hey, support others. If you wanted to go after the political route, I support you. And so that's kind of like a mentality that was really developed in the beginning of almost servicing as a forefront of my mind versus anything else. So that's one piece. And then the second and last piece is, there was another scene, maybe like 7 years old, where I remember there was some fighting and arguments downstairs in a 3-bedroom condo. And I didn't like these scenes and scenarios, so this time I went under my bed and like kind of laid and hid under there. And I remember this was continuing, and then I just didn't like that feeling of like, why is this happening, especially in this family? Even sometimes before, there would be police that comes to break up the arguments. And at that moment, when I was laying down under my bed on the floor, I remember like almost making a commitment to myself, which was like, I'm going to do whatever I can to not like contribute to that kind of anger, arguments, fighting, as well as commit to like really getting my shit together and making my mother proud, which means, I'm going to get really good grades. I'm going to be very participative in all these extracurricular activities. Like, I'm just going to do it. So that was a very strong commitment at a very young age. So those two kind of paint a picture of like who I am now, which is someone who is more behind the scenes, really practices and tries to stay as humble as possible, in a service mindset, and never really have gotten into a physical fight, really try to reshape verbal arguments into something that's more productive and peaceful. So that gives a good kind of quick understanding of that.
Right. So what really strikes me is the fact of how you spoke about your childhood, because we never talked about this. I went to extremely similar conditions. I remember when I was 8 years old, I didn't hide under the bed, but I was on the 3rd floor and I could hear my parents fighting. So I like sneaked down and I looked around the corner and my parents didn't see me, but they had a full-on physical fight. And a few hours later, I remember my mom, she came up to my bed, she woke me up and she was like, Arian, we're going to holidays. I was like, what do you mean holidays? She's like, come on, pack your things, we're going. I'm like, okay, but where is that? And she's like, no, it's just you and I. And that was the night that my parents broke up. And that picture was in my head, literally, it is still until now. And it's very hard for me. My mother raised me solo, and I had the same intention. I wanted to make my mother proud. Probably until like 1 year ago where I understood it's not my role to make my mother happy, it's her own role, it's her own obligation, so to say. But I know that I carried this pain and this darkness with me for a very long time. And I figured out ways to work with this. I'm very curious to know, how did you work with this? Because I know it is emotionally very draining, it can be, and it can be very powerful to both directions. So how did you work with this?
The way to answer that is in the beginning, especially from maybe that commitment age of 7 to maybe around 24, I didn't know that that was what was driving me subconsciously, and so thus I didn't know how to really handle that. There was many years that, especially after college and starting the company that I started, that I was just kind of running on this autopilot of like, make her proud, make her proud. And it drained me. And there was a moment around 24, like I mentioned, that I realized, I was like, dude, this is very draining, this is very tiring, this is like not sustainable. Because it's almost like trying to achieve something that I just forgot that I had already achieved, or that was always there, which was that she is always proud of me. And so it's almost chasing this like star that's always just kind of like keep going past you or further and further away, because it's just an unattainable goal that you're creating for yourself. And so when I realized that, I went to have a conversation with my mother and just be like, hey, FYI, like I've been kind of chasing after this goal of making you proud, and it's getting tiring. It's burning me out, because there's this just, I keep trying to raise it higher and higher. I want to have an honest conversation of like, are you proud of me? Like, you know, just having that very vulnerable conversation. And yeah, it's something that I realized, which was that mothers and parents, if you're fortunate, like I'm sure there's some challenges with some families, but most of the time they are very proud of us and love us unconditionally.
Regardless of what we do.
Yeah, exactly. And something I've learned is that mothers, at least because I grew up with my mother, are the best teachers for unconditional love. So I realized that, and I was like, man, I totally created this story, and I can now safely drop that and live for myself. And so it's right around 24, 25 years old. I'm 29 right now. It's about 4 or 5 years ago that that really came to my being, and now being able to approach life more with myself. So to answer your question, it's going straight to the source and having that very open and vulnerable conversation to be able to really understand from their perspective, especially your parents, that there is no need to create this story of like you're not making them proud.
Right. And it is what you said, most of the times our parents are proud of us regardless of what we do.
Yeah.
And what I found out is what they really just want to do is spend time with us. They don't want us to build that company, sell it, and then spend time with them. Yes, they want to spend time right now.
Yeah, it hurts for me to say that, because it very much is resonant with me. Yeah, because I created the story of like, start the company, create the company, scale the company, you know, make her proud, make a lot of money, then spend time. When a big realization is that tomorrow's never promised, not just for yourself, but for anyone around you. And unfortunately, a friend of mine just passed away 2 days ago, and so that kind of came back into top of mind. So if tomorrow's never promised and all they want to do is spend time, yeah, I feel somewhat guilty of that, and a constant reminder as a practice. And I feel very fortunate that she is here now in Bali with me. And yeah, like right around the corner. and so I'm gonna go spend time with her after this. So it's a great reminder, constantly.
And would you have said that you need it to sell your company in order to be able to do this right now?
You know, one of my friends asked me after the exit. He's like, "Hey, what if you never exited or weren't able to exit? What if it just fucked up and failed and went to the ground?" And I was like, oh, it hurts to think about. And I was just trying to be really honest with him and said, like, it would have taken me maybe, like, if I were to predict, like maybe a couple months, maybe 3 months to really just like sift through all the emotions that probably would have emerged and try to recontextualize them. So like, I fucked up, I failed, this and that would be recontextualized into like, okay, this chapter is closed, let's open a new beginning, let's now align myself with what I want to do for my own life, not for my mother, for example. So that would probably take a couple months for me to fully process, and I feel confident that I would have recontextualized it enough to heal through that and move on. But you know, if I were to answer your question of like, could I have done this without selling? Absolutely. It just would have taken me some time to recontextualize some of the pain that would have happened for how much I spent all this time on. Right. But I know I'm confident I would have come through that and go past that.
Right. So one thing that really resonated with me was the fact of how Tim was trying to make his mother proud. I know that feeling because that's what I've been trying to do for almost all my life, but what we then get to realize is the fact that, hey, our mothers, our fathers, they don't need anything. They don't want to be proud of us. We don't have to do anything for them in order for them to be proud of us. They are proud of us no matter what we do, and they love us no matter what we do. So with that being worked on, we're now getting into the next part. Tim labels himself, or calls himself, an intentional psychonaut. Now the question is, what is an intentional psychonaut? I don't know either, so let's find out. So from what you were saying is now you turned into the polar opposite of what your dad was to you, meaning a very humble, silent, and also good person, like no alcohol, no violence and all those things. Yet there is a very interesting phrase about you on the internet if you look deep into it, which is an intentional psychonaut. So what does it mean to be an intentional psychonaut, and how do you work with that? Tell me more about that.
So a psychonaut is like, think of like an astronaut, but an explorer with psychedelics.
Right.
Right. And so, you know, it's been psychonauts have been around since the early 60s in the Western world, where you have the Timothy Learys of the world kind of like introduce LSD into San Francisco, and everyone goes trips. And so that era, some people call the second wave of psychedelics, really created a way that people just kind of like go take some tabs of LSD and go trip and have fun. This third wave, as some people are calling it now, is more for intentional usage for possible healing, possible exploration of consciousness, and transformation for yourself. Right. And so I was exposed to my first psychedelic experience back in 2014 when I was 24. Has
like right around my age.
Yeah, has any family member ever done it before me? No. And has my mother or father ever talked to me about that? No. And so it was with a few of my friends that I trusted, and yes, it was more for fun exploration, tripping. But on my first one ever, my first LSD trip ever, I realized, I was like, oh my gosh, this is very powerful substance. What could I do with it? And I remember the first time I ever took it, I was going through processes of fear. Like, what am I fearful of and why am I fearful? While everyone else was dancing at Coachella in California. I was sitting on the grass just like processing fear. And I was like, wow, this is super powerful. I wonder what if I did it more in a different setting. Right. And so I bought it, and in San Francisco took frequent explorations in nature by myself. And I would bring a journal and I would write down a question I want to work through, and then spend about 6-7 hours in a forest or near a lot of nature to just process that. And as I realized how powerful that is, I started sharing my experiences. Some people started asking me if I could support them on their first experience, which I was glad to. And so nowadays, you know, how I think about psychedelics is just a very powerful medicinal teacher that has a lot to teach us. And if we treat it the right way, which is the opposite of what I see a lot in the Western world with like marijuana being a very sacred plant teacher as well. If you can treat it the right way, it will teach you profound lessons. If you treat it the wrong way, which is just kind of like take it and have a crazy weird setting with it and not, let's say, set an intention with it of what you want to explore, that's typically why you hear a lot of people having really bad experiences or going down rabbit holes and yeah, just losing control and getting really scared of it, and then that creates a really bad name for it.
Right.
But I think if you add in some intentions with it and create it do it in a very safe setting, you can go inside yourself and be able to bring to light a lot of the issues, fear, self-limiting beliefs that is holding you back, be able to expose that in the forefront, and then understand where that may be coming from, somewhere in a childhood situation or an unfortunate situation that you totally forgot about, and then bring that to light, work through that by feeling it and understanding that it's okay, work through that by trying to let it go, and then be able to make changes in your life after letting that go into what you want to do in your day-to-day life now. So that's intentional psychonaut as how I interpret it.
I love it. And I had a conversation with a girl yesterday, and she told me that she wants to experiment with psychedelics as well. What I realized with her is she had a very wrong understanding on how to use psychedelics, right? So what you were just talking about, people use it recreationally, they just take it at a party or even with friends with the intention to heal. But what they then do is just like talk the whole time and, oh look, the plants are talking to me, you know? Where I think there's a difference between it being a sacred medicine and it being a drug. And I know we both prefer the term sacred medicine, but it really depends on the intention you're setting, because for some people it is a drug and it's nothing more and nothing less, because they treat it as a drug, right? So talking about psychedelics and forming them or using them the way you do, right? How do you do that and how do you get there? Especially like, for example, for people like hearing about this for the very first time, what would you advise them on how to approach this topic?
Yeah, so I've been very fortunate to be working with an organization that helps me process a lot of this called One Heart. And the biggest thing I say after they've gone through their psychedelic exploration is that the difference between psychedelics being a drug and psychedelics being sacred plant medicine, which we would all love because it's a great feeling to name it that way, is integration.
Right.
It's integration. So integration means what are you doing and committing to after you went through that exploration. Whether it's small actionable commitments you make to yourself. For example, let's say in your exploration you're like, why am I so violent? And you realize the source of it is alcoholism. Then you're like, okay, I want to now commit to not drinking at least 4 days out of the week. Or I give myself 1 day out of the week, from 7 days a week, right? Make that commitment and make that progress. That is the difference between recreational usage and just kind of like, that was fun, and then move on with your day-to-day life, right, versus, wow, I learned something, I'm gonna put it into action. And that's what that medicine is used for, to understand some issues and challenges you're going through and then making commitments to making that shift.
Amazing. I want to take a second to talk about the organization you're working with right now, because that's actually where we both met in April in Costa Rica. Yeah. So you're now the CMO, Chief Marketing Officer of One Heart Journeys. Tell me about the beautiful work that you do there and the people do there.
Yeah, so the best way I can explain it is that I call it like a past career versus kind of like what I'm aligned with now. Past career was learning how to build a business even though I was never aligned with it. I never felt resonance with it, and I even remembered spending days trying to work out a vision statement and a problem statement when that should always be in the beginning of why I even started the business. So I can clearly know I started the business from a place of ego, from a place of trying to make myself and my mother proud or prove something. So now I realize that in the organization I'm part of, there is absolute alignment in what I'm super interested in and super excited about. And one feeling to describe that is like I can wake up every morning excited to get things going and start chipping away at the problem or chipping away at the vision. And at the nighttime, ready to go to sleep even earlier to feel rested for the next day to work on that. So that's a feeling I realize. And so One Heart now is all about the mission statement is about how we can elevate the global consciousness of heart-led leaders, so they together can elevate the consciousness of the people around them and the world around them. And so what that translates to is an 8-week program where 2 weeks is helping you prepare, 1 week is actual experience, and 5 weeks is the integration part, where it's very important, where people go through a lot of transformation and life elevation with the root of love and connection being the centerpiece of what they go out of with. And what that translates to is how can you drop out of the mind and into the heart more, right. From the head and into the body more. And so the 1 week journey which we met is really around using ayahuasca as the focal sacred plant medicine modality to accelerate this realization of what fears and self-limiting beliefs are holding you back, and then surrounding those ceremonies with workshops and classes and exercises rooted in love and connection to remind people that that can be the simple answer for the fulfillment that we all seek in what we do in our day-to-day lives. And the biggest challenge that people walk away with is everything that I learned, how can I integrate this into my day-to-day life, which personally for me, I see some beautiful progress with you, and there's still a lot of progress for me as I'm going through this journey, and a lot of us that we've gone through.
So now, tracing back, you were in this whole hectic startup founder life. How did your day look back then, a typical day, and how does it look like now? I mean, we're in Bali right now, so that's a huge difference for sure. How is the difference?
The difference is how much I was in my mind and constantly trying to think like, what's next, what's next, what's next. So for example, I would wake up around 7 or 8 a.m., immediately pull out my phone to see like what fires need to be put out in the startup. Go get showered, get dressed, probably skip breakfast, and then run to the office, and then just start answering emails.
Skip breakfast because consciously intermittent fasting, or
no,
because
unconscious?
Okay.
I'm too good for this, and I need to spend time on the business.
Right.
Start answering emails, start taking meetings, and then before I know it, the day is over. Go home, and it's this like autopilot routine that after a few years, I was able to pull myself out. I'm like, holy shit! Like this is what I'm doing, and am I actually proud of this? This is something I'd be proud of that on my deathbed? And that was a very much resounding no, which allowed me to feel more confident in letting that go. Now it's that I choose the lifestyle I want. And what that means is being very clear up front with myself, the type of lifestyle I want to live, the living environment I want to live, the people I want to surround myself with, the activities I want to learn, et cetera, et cetera. It's actually an exercise we do out of one heart after our experience, and then having the courage to go execute on that. So on my long-term vision plan, I was like, I want to live in a place surrounded with nature that's much more calming, which is why we're here in Bali. I want to be surrounding myself with people who inspire me and who constantly like push me in a very beautiful way to elevate myself, which I get to do that with the One Heart community as well as the One Heart group I work with. And then ultimately, like, I want to learn new hobbies to keep my brain stimulated in different ways that I am with the mind, with the work. So that means, sometimes I wake up, get some, eat my breakfast, do my own practices, and then get some work done. And then in the afternoon, I spend time learning new activities, which include salsa, Latin dancing, which include acro yoga, which includes contact, improv, ecstatic dance, DJing, all these different activities I never thought I would do, and that was something I would never do in my past life, to be able to spend some time with the activities that truly make me smile. So that's been these huge shifts in the type of schedule and the type of life I choose now to create and live.
So now if you would run your agency or your company, a SaaS company again, would you do it differently? Would you include the things that you do now into your daily routine, or would you still be the robot that you were back then?
Yeah. The way I answer that is pretty simple in that, like, if I want to now obviously start with the type, I want to create the lifestyle and thus that would influence the type of company I would build, right? So that means being very honest upfront, like, hey, this is a company that I don't want to raise money to try to like accelerate growth in a very artificial way, which makes me have to put in so many hours, for example. I want to like have a remote first team that allows us to enjoy the lifestyle that we want all, which means that maybe fast growth may be sacrificed a little bit, right? And that's okay, and we all agree to that. We all set time for ourselves to go learn what we want to go learn, or go commit to a yoga practice that we want to in the middle of the afternoon. That's fine. Just be very upfront and make sure your work is never affected by that, and you're not holding someone back from that, for example. But those are some examples I would now create and set in the beginning, first for myself, and I stay true to that. And then anytime we bring on people, be able to explain that to them. That would be much easier to create that type of company.
Right. And so now that you're after this exit in your new life, in your new chapter, what would you say was your biggest challenge in that new life for you and yourself?
The first transition was that I was so used to running that now I got to walk. It was such a weird transition for me. So what that translated to is like, I would open my calendar and there'd be no meetings, and I'm like, ugh, like, am I being productive with my time? Is there something I should be filling up my meeting time with? And I realized I was doing that when I first exited. Like, I got to fill up my time with meetings, even though it has no reason or point to. So that was a transition. It's almost like this visual of like, I'm running, and then all of a sudden I have to start walking. It's like I got to jog, and then I got to walk. And so now I walk at a leisurely pace. And it's like everyone in the Western world is working their asses off, so they must be learning much faster than I am. Am I not learning anymore? Am I being too slow? And all this stuff. And the way I was able to recontextualize this is that, what's the lifestyle you want? And what do you want to create? And it was, at least this year and extension into next year, like rest and recharge, work through things that you've suppressed, and then really find something that you're in true alignment with to commit to next.
Right.
And so if that was the alignment, then it made no sense to keep running. It made sense to lay down, walk a few times, build enough that energy, and then be able to walk at a faster, more intentional pace in the future.
So last but not least, now that you've exited your company, let's say someone's currently in the process of running their company and they plan on exiting it, or they realize, just as you, they're misaligned maybe with it. What advice would you give to those people?
The first big question is, you know, do you want to fully let it go and move on completely from the business? Or do you want to explore an alternative way, which is to possibly hire someone else to just fill your spot? Do you still want to be involved in this mission, or do you want to completely get out? For me, it was like, I have no resonance with this mission of my past company, so I'm willing to completely exit. So that's one thing. The second thing is, I would say, is check in with yourself of like, why you want to let this go. Is it because I influenced you? Don't let that be. Like, really check in with yourself and make sure that that's actually something you want to do. I'll give you stories, I'll give you my story, but ultimately it's got to be your decision. So don't let any outside factors, even this interview, factor into that, because it's got to be something that you feel in your heart personally for you, because it's going to be hard work. And if you don't realize that you're letting some external factor influence you, the hard work's going to be just really painful. Whereas if you're fully aligned with it, all it is just few obstacles to work through to make that happen. And then lastly, if you do want to and you're ready to let that go fully, but you're nervous about like this crazy open space that exists on the other side, know that you'll be okay, and know that like it's in perfect timing for you, it's ready for you. And the only thing I would like recommend is sitting down, like staying still, practicing your meditation if you have to, and then realize now you have a blank canvas to really create the amazing lifestyle you're so capable of. And now you have the space and time to do so, which is exactly what I did. And now being on the other side almost a year and a couple months after, like time moves so weirdly for me. Like, I don't realize what days it is, because I'm just so much enjoying every day I have. Today, I'm taking my mother out to a humane elephant park to go enjoy some animals in nature. And then outside of that, I'm spending my time at this amazing event called Startup Weekend to go advise and support other entrepreneurs. So yeah, that kind of summarizes how I spend my life. It's like on the grounded, rooted side, I like to spend a lot of time with change makers and supporting them in their journey and helping them realize that, you know, there's these stories that I've gone through that they can use. And then on the other side, spending time with people I love and enjoy. And then lastly, doing my own work of the things that I'm focused on, whether it's the type of lifestyle of the relationship I want to build or the new skill sets I want to have in my life.
Beautiful. With that being said, I don't want to hold you back much longer from spending time with your mother. Thank you so much, Tim, for joining in. If people want to find out more about you, is there a way to find you?
Yeah, easiest way is to find me on, let's say, LinkedIn first, and just search Tim Sae Koo.
The good old LinkedIn, yeah?
Tim Sae Koo. I try to be wary of my email right now, so that's why I don't spend so much time watching it right now. So LinkedIn, just search Tim Sae Koo and connect with me, and I'm happy to find ways to chat.
So we'll link that down below for people that are interested. And then thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for letting me share the story.
Thank you.
Awesome. And cut.
So one thing we learned from Tim is the fact that we should sometimes stop running and start intentionally walking our way that is on our path. Because what might end up happening is the fact that we run, and when we're in the system, we don't even realize what is happening. So let's really take this interview as an inspiration to put intention on every step on our way. And one last thing that I really enjoyed about Tim is the fact that he doesn't need to be all loud, in your face type of person, but he really draws that wisdom and power from stillness. Something that, especially in today's day and age, for us young people, we can use as incredible inspiration. So I wish you all best of success with implementing exactly that, and I'll see you on the next one.